Well, I know I looked better that way, but...
I know. We can leave the lights down. I'm fine with that.
Let's welcome Donna today. Okay. I had a wonderful time with you. I had a wonderful time, and your honesty was incredible. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I knew Donna for some time, but I didn't know her story, and so I got to hear her story for the first time in her words, right? Not that I heard it in everybody else's words. Don't get worried. I'm just going to ask you to start, Donna, and the way we started is I asked you to talk about your roots as a child, you know, what it was like growing up.
Sure. So I grew up in Spring Lake Park Church of the Nazarene. Grew up in a Christian household. My mom, everybody knows my mom. I know a lot of you. You've known me since I was a little kid. Had a good life. Played softball with Chuck Stovner. Some of you know him. And Pastor Driscoll was like a father figure. My dad was an alcoholic and just really negative. But my mom was always my rock. And I did a lot with the church. And I had good roots. A good foundation, and that was because a lot of you even still here today.
Amen. And you were involved in youth groups and everything else.
Yep. I skipped out on a senior trip with school to go with the church to play volleyball in Kansas City. It was a fall retreat thing that we did every year, and I chose that. I mean, God was really present in my life.
Amidst even some pulls of things of the world, and yet overall, you were still very committed to Christ.
Yep.
And then, you know, there's always that transition time from the home when you're 18 years old or whatever you are when you leave. People do that at different ages.
Yep.
So what happened next?
At 18, I decided I'm going to be an adult. And my brother, Dan, we said, we're out of here. We're leaving. We can do this on our own. And we were going to go to where my mom grew up, a small town. And she goes, no, don't go up there and cause problems. So we said, okay, we won't. So we were leaving the state. So we went to Fargo. We crossed the border to Fargo. And, you know, we were trying to do things right. We were living and experiencing life. And I did realize how much my mom did for me. Laundry and cooking and cleaning and bills, and adulting is hard.
Yeah.
And God wasn't my center. You know, I always had that, but He wasn't my center, and I was not living a godly life. Stayed there 6 months, came back, was in a pretty rough relationship, and ended up moving back home. And then did some traveling. I lived in Alaska for a while and moved to Montana and was just existing, just living, you know, growing up, not doing bad things, but definitely not living for God. Drifting further and further. But still, you know, I'd come back and visit and see people, but I just was not where I was supposed to be.
Right. And then you had another commitment. You moved from and you had some jobs, and I think you had some good jobs.
I had some good jobs, and you know, in the early 2000s, 99, I went to a women's expo with a girlfriend.
You were 3 at that time, right?
Yeah, I was really young. And we entered all these drawings for everything that you could get free, and I won a dating membership for Together. How funny is that? Together Dating.
We're starting that next week. Okay.
So, you never know. And I was just dating. They were sending me all these, what I called, I don't know, losers. And I was like, okay, I got a free membership. You're giving me the loser. So I actually called them, and I was like, you know what? Forget it. I just don't want any part if you're just gonna send me all the bad people. And I mean, people who put bikes together for a living, and people that didn't have a job. I don't know, it was just not great. So they said, no, we're sorry. And I went on vacation for a couple weeks, and when I got back, my mom and I talk all the time, and I had a letter they matched me with a guy named Steve. Now this was them matching you. You had nothing. You didn't have a picture. You had a phone number, you had a sheet, you had a name and an address, and that was pretty much it. And I was telling my mom about this, and she's like, you should call this guy. And I was like, I am so done dating. Like, I'm burnt out. And she pushed and pushed and pushed and said, call him. So I called him and I left him a message, and he became the father of my kids. Steve and I met in the end of August of '99. We were engaged in December and married right here by Pastor Steve Hoffman, who is the district superintendent, in 2000.
Yeah.
And life was good.
Yeah. What happened next?
We just weren't in the same place. We weren't equally yoked. There were a lot of differences.
Okay, that's a key thing. Now, please explain. What do you mean by equally yoked?
Oh, so many things. We knew that we had religious differences, but he was Catholic, born and raised Catholic. I was not. And we really thought that we both believed there was heaven and hell. We both believed in God. That's all we needed. We were at completely different walks in our life. My goal was to really have a commitment in the future, right? I wasn't ready right then to be committed to the church and God, but that was my goal, to have somebody to pray with, a strong leader.
Okay, that's what you were looking at.
That's what I had envisioned. My parents didn't have that. I didn't have that as growing up. My dad was not the Christian leader.
Right.
I wanted that for my family. I mean, I knew I wanted to get married and have kids, and that's what my goal was, to be involved in the church and to have somebody to pray and lead the family.
Right. So along the way, you weren't spiritually connected.
At all.
I think we often describe it like this. There is, when people are both moving towards Christ, it'll look like this. Even if you don't have a lot of things in common, if Christ is the goal, it can really draw you together, even with differences. And so, but neither one of you had that going, and you're not blaming, you're just saying it wasn't there. Right?
It just wasn't there. I do believe if God would have been our center, we would have made it. Mm-hmm. We are divorced. We have 4 boys, you've all probably met. But we were just not connected. We had been in counseling and things just weren't great. We were existing. It was
on the outside, it looked good.
It was good. I mean, we floated in and out of church. We came, Pastor Chapman, all the boys were dedicated here, and it was hard. Life was hard. We both worked full-time jobs, and then we have kids, and then we have a house, and all the other drama that goes with it.
Right. So what happened next?
I got a message on Facebook from an ex-boyfriend who said, "Are you happy?" And I was like, no, not really. And he became my emotional, what I needed, what I thought I needed. Looking back, I really think that I was looking for a way out of my relationship, and he was the out. I didn't want to be alone. So here was somebody who said, I made a mistake by not being with you way back when, 15 years ago. I never got married because, you're the person that I was looking for and longing for. And he just said all the right things, and I was very vulnerable.
So in the midst of all of the, there's bills to pay and kids to raise and jobs to go to, and then you don't have a central focus of some religion, but not relationship with Christ.
None. I wasn't praying. I wasn't really going to church. I wanted all the right things, but I wanted happiness. I wanted a happy family, and I had a family, but it just wasn't happy. Mm-hmm. And then I thought I had happiness, and then I didn't have my family, because then it was all broken.
So over this period with this fellow, there was a couple of years.
Yep.
Of what happened.
Well, it was this made-up world where he would just swoop in and kind of take over and be this leader and be this great father figure, and just be everything that he said he wanted to be. It was the highest highs and the lowest lows of my life. Mm-hmm. It was just it was miserable, and it was wonderful, and it was emotional, and I was so torn. I was so confused. I was so just miserable.
I think the word you used was delusional.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. It was, I was taken advantage of in a vulnerable place. I was looking to fulfill a need that I thought this guy could fill.
There you go. So looking for someone. You know, it's interesting. I'm dealing with a situation right now in our extended family. And it's almost identical. And we are doing everything we can to try to save that. But one of the things is, it's not about that there aren't problems, but isn't it interesting how, well, I was thinking of Adam and Eve in a perfect world. Everything. They had everything. So even if it was perfect, here comes, and Genesis 3 describes this as the most beautiful creature in the garden. And, you know, I hate Satan.
He describes himself, or he pretends to be so many things that we want.
Doesn't come with horns and a pitchfork, folks. Doesn't come with smoke coming out of his nostrils. Comes like your angel of light, rescuer. I'm your answer. That's what Satan does. It may be in a person, it may be in things. But let's go on. So you were at a place and thinking that was going to work, but
he walked out. There was problems. That wasn't great either. We started running into responsibility issues, and I realized that I was probably really good for him, but he wasn't good for me. He was not leading me, and because of the relationship, he wasn't welcomed in the family. He was, but it was still this is what tore your family apart. This person tore your family apart. And eventually 2015, he kind of just said, it's not quite what I thought it was going to be.
One of the things, and he walked out, the one that was going to be your savior.
Yeah, he was going to be the one.
Walked out. One of the things I think, and I'm not calling him or anybody else Satan. Please understand, Satan works through people. And Christ died for everybody that you mentioned, including this fellow, and wants him to have life. So this is not about that. This is that he will bring such deception, and did that in the garden. And the promises are, it will get better. Do you remember what he said to Eve? No, you can eat of that. And it'll be pleasing, it'll be good, and you will even be spiritually better off. You'll be like God. He's a liar.
He's a liar.
And so this went on for until about 2015 or so.
So the end
and
of 2015.
then this person walked out.
Yep. And I was broken, and I was alone, and I was a single mom. And that's the whole reason I hadn't left my husband. I didn't want to be a single mom. I didn't want divorce. I wanted things to work out. And then I found a couple of verses. Sometimes when you're in a dark place and think you've been buried, you've actually been planted. And sometimes when things are falling apart, they may actually be falling into place. And looking back, I knew that was not the guy that I was supposed to be with. He was not what God wanted for my life. And I took a lot of time, and I refocused, and I got my roots, and I came back to church, and that's when I started on the school board, and I started doing things not only for me, but things that I wanted to be able to accomplish and give glory. And things just got better and better and better. And then Pastor Sam came.
Well, let's keep it positive here.
I have told Pastor Sam that I truly believe he saved my life. my mom was always here. The church was, 10 people. Jen was here, and, Linda and Scott and Marilyn and Dwayne, and people were here, but it was just not a growth. And I would come and I wouldn't necessarily be filled, and I was trying to do better. I wanted to be a good role model for my kids. Through all of my mistakes, I didn't want that to define my future.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want that to be all negative. I wanted there to be, I kept saying, God, there's got to be something. There's got to be something positive from all these mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kept attending, and really starting in probably the early part of 2017, maybe the end of 2016, I started coming to church more regular. And I just felt filled, and I could tell God was changing me. He was doing things in me that I know were not of me. And he does answer prayers. I remember, and Dan will remember, my dad had throat cancer, esophageal cancer, and we went in to do a surgery. And God told me, as clear as somebody talking, I'm going to take it. He will be a testimony. And the surgeon came in and said, I'm going to do the surgery. I'm going to do everything I can, but we'll see how it goes. And I was like, no, you're going to get it all. And I remember Dan going, hey, let's not push it. He didn't say he was going to get it all. I was like, I know he will. And he did. And just little things, but God was changing me.
Yep, one of the things about Donna is she took full responsibility, repentant, full responsibility for failed marriage. And we know there's always two sides, but she just said, I was not in the place. But that the second broken relationship drove you to Jesus.
Absolutely.
You started coming back.
Absolutely.
And in 2017, you had a significant event.
I was baptized. And I knew. And Rascal Flatts has a song, and it's called Changed.
Yeah, I read that.
And probably a lot of you have seen it or at least heard it. Well, I don't know, Pastor Sam and Joy said they hadn't heard it before, but I think a lot of people have heard it. And it says, I came up out of the water, raised my hands up to the Father. I gave it all to him that day. I felt a new wind kiss my face. I walked away with my eyes wide open, and I could finally see where I was going. It didn't matter where I had been, because I'm not the same as I was then. And it talks about I got off track, I made mistakes, and I had backslid my way into that place where souls get lost, lines get crossed. I crossed a lot of those lines. And the pain won't go away. But then I hit my knees, now here I stand. There I was, now here I am, and I'm changed. And then the second part, I did a lot of, hey, I'm sorry. The things I've done, man, that was not me. I wish I could take it all back, and I just want to tell him that. And I did. I wrote letters to my family, to my father-in-law and my mother-in-law and my ex-husband. I wrote him a letter on our 20th, what would have been our 20th anniversary in 2020. And I wrote him a letter. I can only imagine how I hurt him, and I've said I'm sorry, and I've tried to change, and through God I've made a lot of progress. I'm not perfect. Every day I still make mistakes. Every day I keep trying to do better. I still yell at my kids. I still raise my voice a lot.
Did I hear an amen back there?
A lot. And I tell them every day is a new day, right? Every day. But being baptized was the start of something great.
You were baptized before, but you chose... Oh, no, you had
No,
not
I
been
had
baptized.
never.
You had
No.
not been baptized,
No.
but you were raised in the church. But the baptism was like brand new to you. You talked about that was death.
That was yep, and everything. I laid it all down there. And with the divorce, with this other guy, the guilt, the shame, that was my fault, all the pain that I see my kids going through being separated, going to their dad, staying with mom, who should I go with? You know, where do I belong? All that, you know,
Right.
Christmas together, all the birthdays, all the hard. That's all my fault. That's all me.
But God is healing.
But God is healing.
God is healing. And we'll keep praying, right? Don't you like just hearing real people?
Yeah.
Who are just real about where they've been? You had something from Max Lucado.
Oh, I did.
Okay.
This is really how I
And
felt.
I want to just make this clear. I didn't do anything to save her life.
No.
And I have no idea what she's talking about.
God put Sam here. We all know that.
Oh, yes, that I'll agree with. But the thing that I say is that we're put here for each other. And what God has done in our lives through you people. Yes, even you.
And He knows what we need. And He puts people in our lives that are there for a purpose. And He put a lot of people in my life. And this is kind of how I felt. Secure in His grasp. God is strong and can help you not fall. You and I are on a great climb. The wall is high and the stakes are higher. You took your first step the day you confessed Christ as the Son of God. He gave you His harness, the Holy Spirit. In your hands He placed a rope, His word. Your first steps were confident and strong, but with the journey became weariness, and with the height came fear. You lost your footing. You lost your focus. You lost your grip and you fell. For a moment, which seemed like forever,
Yeah.
and it did, it seemed like a world ago, you fell. You tumbled wildly, out of control, out of self-control, disoriented, dislodged, falling. But then the rope tightened, and the tumble ceased. You hung in the harness and found it to be strong. You grasped the rope and found it to be true. And though you can't see your guide, you know Him. You know He is strong. You know He is able to keep you from falling.
Amen. Thank you so much, Donna, and thank you for sharing. And
Of
it's
course.
not always easy. Let's just thank her this morning, right?